Coming up on the heels of Sean Marks calling for strategic decision-making, the Brooklyn Nets go on the road and beat the Portland Trailblazers. We dive in on the return of Cam Johnson and D'Lo to the lineup, all coming up next.
You are Locked On Nets, your daily Brooklyn Nets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, my friends, it is the Locked On Nets podcast, rated the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team, the Brooklyn Nets, every single day. He's Doug Norrie. I'm Adam Marbeck. We thank you, as always, for making us your first listen of the day. Runners been free on all those great platforms, and let you know that was one heck of a game, Doug, on the road, West Coast, Brooklyn Nets. After we specifically talk about all the things that Sean Marks is saying, the one divide we had was that you cannot convince players to not go out and play hard, and they get the win over the Blazers. Any surprise here with the return of D'Lo and Cam Johnson to the lineup?
Well, it's just not how you tank. 132. You don't go. I'll tell you what, one way not to tank is put up 132 points on the road against the Blazers, a team that you're kind of jockeying with. Sorry, I got a little losing my voice here. Jockeying with position when it comes to the tankathon odds. Like they were swapping around the 6th and 7th place right now. And look, I can understand. We'll talk about the game here in a second. You know, Nets put up 132 points. There's plenty of player takes. From a season standpoint, I will say this: pro tank, anti-tank, wherever you are with this situation with the Nets, one thing I think we can agree on is that where the Nets are right now is like worst of all worlds. Right? It's the worst of all worlds. They're not good enough to, like, if you want them to win, they're not going to be good enough to make the play-in, right? Like that's just, they're not going to get enough wins to get there. And then if you want them to lose, well, they're not bad enough to do that. And so they're just going to sit in this no man's land of the 6th, 7th, 8th pick. And it's like hard to imagine how anyone feels happy in this scenario. Like the team that wants them to try hard, that's great. It's not going to get them to the playoffs. And then the team that wants them to lose, well, they're too good to lose. And so this is like a game they had to lose, kind of, if you wanted to be in the tanking. And they kind of crushed the Blazers, who are kind of pathetic. It's just one of these situations where I can understand why people are frustrated on both sides of the aisle.
And the Blazers, who have lost now 3 straight, but are 4-6 in their last 10. And when you go over to Tankathon odds, yes, Portland has now jumped ahead of the Brooklyn Nets in the tank odds. They're in the 6th position. The Nets fall back to the 7th after having just played, the tank off. And we get into all of the kind of fun, depressing part of it against the Utah Jazz and what they accomplished. It's to your point, man. Like there's that, and not that anyone is advocating for that right now, but this is not a team that you look at and say, well, enough goes the right way here, even with everything about getting the number 1 draft pick and all that stuff. It'll be scrappy. Think back to, because D'Lo's back on this roster, right? Go back to the year when they surprised everybody and made it into the playoffs. Even though they got beat, it was this fun vibe of a season. You got excited about it, and it led to bigger and better things. Because of the circumstances around this team, it's, that was kind of a vibe win there. Oh, great. Super. All right. 29 wins on the year. Not good enough. Not going to be there. Let's go ahead and drop ourselves to the 14th spot in the lottery, whatever it's going to end up being, right? Like that's where you want to hear Sean Marks' words when he says we're going to be strategic and the decisions we make are not always going to be about winning basketball games. Well, you have D'Angelo Russell and Cam Johnson both potentially returning, doing shoot-arounds, seeing how it was going to feel. To me, if I was strategic, I wouldn't have had both of them playing in this particular basketball game. And that's where I did scratch my head to see them both take the floor, because as you and I talked about, once you are a fully healthy team on this roster, there are going to be games on the schedule, like against Portland, where you go, yeah, we've seen them. They're good enough to beat teams like this, and they effectively handled this game wire to wire.
Yeah, it was kind of close going into the fourth quarter, double or single digits, but they pulled away in the fourth. They shoot 46% from 3. I mean, Portland didn't shoot much better, 45% from 3. There wasn't a ton of defense being played in this game. It was kind of up and down the court. It had a wide open feel to it. I mean, Portland offered absolutely no resistance at all. And maybe you want to say, well, they just kind of understand the assignment better. Maybe the players are worse. Maybe their coach, I don't even know if the players are worse, but maybe their coach worse, or maybe that team has just been so far in the tank for so long that it's hard for them to care for long stretches. Like I'm not really sure what the whole story is, but
they have real Detroit Pistons kind of vibes over these last handful of years, where like you're getting in talent, but you can't figure out how to best use it, and you don't know if you should be trying to add to help them get better. Like they're going to be the next iteration of that, I think, where the fan base and the NBA at large goes, what is Portland these days? And it seems like it's year over year with them now.
And look, the guys have guys like Scoot where they drafted high. They have the guys like Sharp, who I think still project well to have like a really good career. And Simons, it just kind of like doesn't all fit together. And they were even kind of like throwing in a lot of losses even when they had Dame, right? So like they've been in this weird spot for kind of a long time. The Nets, though, look, if you're a team that's going to bring D'Angelo Russell off the bench, like how bad are you going to be as a team, right? I think that like that's the other thing to think about. Even with a minutes limit, which it was announced before the game that D'Lo and Cameron Johnson would both play with minutes limits, and D'Lo would come in, not even be run with the starting lineup. If you're bringing him in off the bench, like it's going to be hard for you to be super, super bad, right? And I don't know if it's like 18 points on the road win over another team good, but you're going to not be Washington Wizards 7 wins on the season or whatever they have. 6 wins, 6 wins on the season bad, or Hornets 8 wins. Raptors 9 wins. I mean, maybe those teams are doing a better job of losing, or or have a worse organization. Like I said, this is the part I sometimes can't tell what's going on here, because those two teams theoretically on paper have more talent, but they can't seem to get it together. And here the Nets are with 14 wins on the season, kind of an insurmountable lead at this point. Like when it comes to just getting all the way to the bottom, how are the Wizards going to pick up 8 wins on the Nets? Like the Wizards going to pick up 8 wins? I mean, come on. Like, there's no possible way. And so the Nets have already dug themselves. God, it's so hard. I don't even know the phrasing for this.
Phrase it the way you hate to phrase it. Do it. You do it.
Yeah, like dug themselves a hole or climbed themselves a mountain, whatever it is. Like, they climbed themselves a mountain of wins that they're going to have trouble walking down from now. And this is another one of these games that kind of solidifies it. And look, I'm not even here. I want to talk about some of these other guys too, because we end up talking about this like sort of high level stuff a lot. But again, this isn't even me coming on with this pro tank agenda. I'm just saying, like I said in the beginning, this kind of game lands you in no man's land for whatever side you're choosing.
Yeah,
because you lose to the Jazz, and then then Mark signals that they're not going to try hard enough. Well, they're not going to make the play-in. So they're 4 games back from the play-in. So what do you want to happen here? At this point, you kind of feel like strategically they should not be winning these games, and then they kind of win going away. I don't know. I could just understand the frustration on both sides. That's kind of all I'm saying. And it's going to be hard. Like if this is going to be the roster, and they don't even have Cam Thomas back yet, but if these are going to be the guys, they're going to stay in a lot of games. And until they get traded or whatever they end up doing.
132-114 is the final on the road. Here we talk about these last 2 games against Utah and Portland and how important they were, because they're going to go and they're going to take on some high-level teams. But we'll get inside here in a moment. The rotation, having D'Lo come off the bench, his performance, Cam Johnson back on the court, and you can see it. When you get a couple more ball handlers back on there, it makes it a lot more difficult. Again, to not be successful on a possession-to-possession basis. We'll get into the offensive side of things here in just one moment.
Before we get to that, tell you about our friends over at Hungry Root. Look, when it comes to grocery shopping, meal planning, you got this ongoing problem. Just don't have the time, work, life, trying to eat healthier. You're constantly feeling stressed out. I know I get this feeling a lot. You go to the grocery store, you buy things you don't need, and you end up with no time to actually cook it and sticking to the health goals. That becomes even harder. Things can change when you discover Hungry Root. It's been a game changer, easiest way to eat healthy without all the stress. With With Hungry Root, it's like having a personal shopper and a nutritionist all in one. They take care of the grocery shopping. They recommend meals and groceries based on your taste and health goals. Maybe it's anti-inflammatory to high protein, gluten-free options. It's all there. Every meal is ready in 15 minutes or less. Talking quick, healthy meals that actually taste great. You're going to love Hungry Root. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box and a free item in every box for life. There you go. Just go to hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA and use the code LockedOnNBA. That's hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA. Code LockedOnNBA for 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA. Code LockedOnNBA. Don't miss out.
All right, so as we continue today's Locked On Nets episode, talking about the Brooklyn Nets getting that win 132-114, slipping in the tank odds down to the 7th position. And it's, of course, in large part to do with the players on the court. Now, I put Cam Johnson up on the rundown if you're watching over on YouTube ahead of D'Lo, but I find the D'Lo to be the far more interesting conversation here, because when you look at this, you mentioned minutes restrictions. In 21 minutes of action, now he only goes 3 of 11 from the field, but those 3 makes were from beyond the arc. More importantly, gets to the line 4 times, has 9 assists and 4 steals in 21 minutes of action to go along with his 13 points. And listen, we talk about every single aspect of his game. But when you have a pure ball handler, and he has that style of play that we can remember watching when he was here, but I think it's even developed more over the years. He has that very under control, probing style of offensive basketball, setting up some of the screens, working his way into the paint, finding the outlets. Like, this is an experienced veteran point guard in the league that knows how to run an offense. And in those 21 minutes, you saw it every single possession that he was on the ball. It's great to see him playing well. And it's also going to be a problem for the Brooklyn Nets.
Yeah, what he does is what you're describing is he sets up a screen. And if you come over the screen, he kind of positions himself sort of under the screener and he takes a three. And it's like looks really methodical and slow. And it kind of is, except it's purposeful. And the three makes were this exact play. The 3 times he made the 3-pointers were this exact play. I think it was all Sharp screens. Sharp comes up, at least 2 of them were. Sharp comes up, sets a screen. He identifies whether the guy comes over or under. The guy goes over, and he just positions himself so that he uses the screener because the screener doesn't roll. He positions himself under the screener essentially and takes a 3 and buries it. Now he missed a bunch of other shots, but like they don't have any other guys on the team that he could even do that. Like even that move is not something that they have in like a pick and roll ball handler. And when you have the ability to do that, like he does, you do set up the ability to space the defense out a little bit and be able to find rollers and then have, a ton of assists. Like he had 9 assists? Yeah, 9 assists in 21 minutes. And so he has the court vision too. He's not like some all NBA player. He's not an all-star like he was the one year in Brooklyn when he kind of led them on that season that you started off the show talking about. But I mean, he's light years better than anyone they have. They don't even have anyone like this. Like this, like I would say, like light years better. He's the only guy on the team that can do anything like this and punish defenses like this. And if you're going to bring him off the bench, like you're going to have a floor raising guy. Again, I can see why the Lakers don't really want it around. He's not going to raise their ceiling at all to get to the championship or anything like that. But in terms of raising your floor, the difference between having him run your offense or having like Tosan bring the ball up in overtime the other night against Utah, like what are we talking about here? It's just a light years worth of difference.
Well, and not only that, too, because you look inside the starting lineup and you see that Ben Simmons in just 26 minutes of action had 11 assists. But as we all know, as everybody knows, right? 6 shot attempts, only made 2 of them, isn't doing other things that punish defenses in that way, right? So, like, the complete nature of a pure traditional style point guard in D'Angelo Russell, you see that immediate impact. And the other part of this, too, is inside of a game like this, you mentioned minutes restrictions for Cameron Johnson as well. Still played 27, in this one, 10 of 18, only 2 of 9 from beyond the arc, though. So it's also this world where you come back from this game and these guys are going to be in it, but you think about the way that Johnson has played. Now, still 10 of 18 overall. The game, 24 points. But you would think sometimes you flash into that box score, you'd say, well, if he's not knocking down some of those perimeter looks, you're only getting 21 minutes off of D'Angelo Russell. But this, I think, again, goes back to that theme we talked about early in the year around the coaching and around the system. And how if you have just good enough, right? If the talent level is enough, then this team can be successful and can actually create opportunities for others. Because we'll talk about the role players here. There's a lot of box score here that is fantastic from everybody else, and that's the difference. You don't have to be perfect, Cam Johnson, on a night in, night out basis if you have D'Angelo Russell on the court and he's setting things up occasionally and he's finding the perimeter shooters. Even if Ben Simmons isn't the perfect player, as long as he's facilitating, these 2 guys combined for 20 assists across 47 minutes combined. Like that's all you need for this team to be good enough, because they have the shooters. They have Noah Clowney on the perimeter now. They have players that are able. Keon Johnson is still doing it. Tyrese Martin is still doing it, right? So as long as these role players keep filling their stat box as adequately as possible, sorry, these are going to be winnable games. Not going to be the same thing against the better teams in the league, but against a team like Portland, yeah, you're going to actually make it look kind of comfortable getting a win like this on the road.
And with a guy like Russell, with D'Lo, and it was kind of the same thing with Schroeder too, is that when I say he's a floor raiser, he's not just like a floor raiser overall. Like he elevates other players around. Like he has good court vision. He understands how to set up an offense. He understands the spacing. He kind of understands he really actually understands the geometry of basketball pretty well. Because like we saw this in his first run where he would get into the mid-range pretty easily, hit those shots. Now those shots aren't mathematically plus EV anymore, but he could still do. It was a testament that he could actually play this kind of basketball. And when you can play this kind of basketball, and like I said, you understand the geometry of it, you are going to be able to help out other players that kind of need that help. Like a good example is him playing with Daron Sharp, right? Like Daron Sharp playing with a pure point guard like this, who understands pick and roll offense and understands how to screen, rescreen, and like take advantage of a big body. That's going to make Sharp a better player. And it's funny too. If you look at, like, they haven't played that many minutes together. They played, I was just looking real fast while you're talking, D'Lo and Daron Sharp. Cause like, this is a pairing that you would like, strategic basketball wise, this is a pairing that kind of makes sense, right? Pick and roll ball handler, guy who can't really set himself up, but is a good screener, can roll to the basket and can get on the offensive boards. They played 30 minutes together, plus 44 net rating. Now, obviously, that's a small sample size of those two guys, but if you think about them together, it makes sense. And this is all to say, with D'Angelo Russell, this is why tankers ripped their hair out when they traded for D'Lo, kind of knowing this was going to happen.
Yeah.
Right. Like this was going to happen. It was like, okay, great. You got rid of Schroeder. He was the one guy on the team that could do anything like this. And Schroeder's a different player, right? He's much more downhill. Like, he wants to get to the basket. He wants to get you an ISO and kind of like induce and kind of break you down. D'Lo's not like that. But the part where they're both capable players, it's like, okay, you got rid of Schroeder. He was the only guy on the team that could do that. Awesome. Oh, wait, we brought in someone else that is kind of capable. Like, why? And it's kind of bearing itself out like this. And so he just makes these other guys kind of better. He's not going to. So it's a funny thing. Like, D'Angelo Russell is not going to make LeBron James better, which is why the Lakers traded him, right? But D'Angelo Russell for sure can make guys like Daron Sharp better. Can for sure make guys like Tosan better, because he just does the things that unlock the other parts of their game. And this is why we just kind of saw it on display. Even going 3 for 11, he was still plus in the box score because he can do these other things.
And the thing for me too is, you mentioned about Cam Thomas not even being a part of this team right now with the injury. When he comes back, and to, D'Angelo Russell will help unlock Cam Thomas as well and make that impact. And it's why, even though we talked about, I remember speaking with Kamenetsky of Locked On Lakers and saying, oh, what do you think the Nets are going to do with D'Lo? Do you think they'll try to trade him before the deadline? I wasn't sure with the contract and everything else to really be a viable market. But if you're talking about being strategic, as Sean and Mark said, now they have a difficult schedule coming up, but these next handful of games and the way that D'Lo plays, there's probably going to be a conversation about, are we buying out D'Angelo Russell? Why? Because we can't have him playing. We can't have him on the roster. And you can't justify, this isn't Bogdanovich injured to start the year. Don't know if he's ever going to play. So you just kind of let him linger out there. No, like, if he's on the team, he's going to play. It's the same thing about Ben Simmons. If he's on the roster, he's going to play, right? Cam Johnson, he's on the roster, and you don't trade him, even though we assume, we hope that they're going to. If they're on the roster, they're all going to play, and you're going to keep seeing games like this. And the worst part about it, I feel like we almost feel obligated to continue to reiterate this, is it was a fun game to watch. I hate the fact that the conversation is all centered around, damn, players are too good. They're performing too well, right? It's such a bad way to be operating right now. And the reason why it's made more painful is what you talked about coming out of that first segment and about the tank odds, because you're in no man's land. So now you end up looking at this stuff with a more critical lens and saying, yeah, too good. Nope, too many assists, understands the game too well. This is not the roster that leads to a tank, right? Ben Simmons with a bunch of average players and no veterans and no experience around him for the year. That's captain, tank commander. Here we go. We're on our way. So there's still something that needs to be figured out here before the beginning of February and the trade deadline for the Nets to try to maintain that top 6, top 5 goal when it comes to where they'll be in the draft. In a moment, though, my friends, let's also talk about the rest of this roster, because guess what? Noah Clowney keeps doing his thing, and several other key performers from a young talent standpoint. The development is well on track. We'll do that to close things out here in just one moment.
Before we get to that, tell you, my friends over at Wayfair, after the holiday hustle, nothing like giving your home a little TLC. Always find that decluttering and refreshing those spaces helps me get back into a routine. Whether you're tidying up, clearing out, or just want to give your space a new look to start the year, Wayfair has everything you need, all within your budget. Love to hear that. Currently looking for furniture. Their huge selection makes it easy to find pieces that fit into any style, any budget. That's free and hassle-free delivery, even for larger items too. Wayfair site's so easy to navigate. You can find everything you need in no time at all. Something for every style and every home, no matter your space, no matter your budget. Makes it easy to tackle those New Year's home goals with endless inspiration for every space. Give your home the refresh it needs with Wayfair. Head over to wayfair.com right now. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home.
All right, as we tie a pretty little bow on today's Locked On Nets episode, talking about not only the win, but let's go ahead and put a pin in the fact that the Nets are messing up the tank. And let's just talk about this game and this box score that had Noah Clowney in 29 minutes, goes 7 of 10 from the field. No surprise, 70% of his shots were from beyond the arc. He knocked down 4 of those. He gave you another strong performance on the shooting end. Zaire Williams, 3 of 4 from deep, got together with himself there. And by the way, all throughout the starting lineup, something that I don't think we see as consistently with this Nets team because they don't have the penetrating offensive players. Everybody in the starting lineup got to the line at least twice in this game. Only made 18 trips to the free throw line overall, and that came from D'Angelo Russell getting their 4 off the bench. But there did seem, again, the balance of the offense did afford players like Zaire Williams maybe to start to get back on track from his outside shot. He had 7 rebounds, better rebounding performance from Noah Clowney as well. So some bigger bodies, some better spacing led to, I think, some more consistent performance, to say nothing of Keon Johnson, who also kicked in 20 points, 7 of 12, 3 of 8 from deep for him in the starting rotation.
Yeah, look, again, if you shoot 46% from 3, it's going to be hard to lose. That's just for any team in the NBA. Like if you're gonna shoot 46% from 3 and then win the turnover battle by 6, you just basically won. I don't like now. I know that's not how the game plays out on a possession by possession basis, but if you just look in the box score, if you see those two things, it's like, well, it's over, and then they won the offensive glass as well. So I would say like the Nets did the things that I would sort of associate with like hustle, right? Like they get on the get on the offensive rebound. Oh, actually, never mind. They lost the offensive rebounding game. I thought they had won that. I was just assuming sharp plays that they just kind of win this, but they did.
But clean the defensive glass very effectively, being +9 there.
Yeah. Sorry, I kind of like did a eyes crossed thing on the rebound. So they do win the rebounding battle, do not win the offensive rebound. But regardless, with the efficiency from beyond the arc, plus just getting after it on the offensive end against sort of like at times discombobulated Portland Trailblazers team, plus like, it's like, oh, no Claxton. And you're like, oh, maybe DeAndre Ayton will have a day. No, he stinks. 2 points, 24 minutes. Like they can't do anything in the paint against him. But they just have
players that have kind of fallen, a little bit off the radar in terms of NBA and their prospects.
Well, ever since he said that he hurt his back because he was sleeping on an air mattress for like the first half of the season, I feel like that was probably, if we weren't sure about it, like that was pretty much the end of
it. Without
his
intentions.
For
where he wanted his career to go.
Between that and like not being able to get to the game because there was like too much ice on the street, I think like I think we could pretty much figure out what's going on there. Anyway,
there's a lot going on.
With the Nets, though, I agree with you. They have these guys that none of them jump off the page to you, like Clowney, Zaire. Like none of these guys are in and among themselves, just like highlight reel kind of dudes. But they all kind of are above average / play with energy. By the way, Noah Clowney, all we had to do was mention he hadn't had a block since 2 weeks before Christmas, block last game. So that's basically how that works. Yeah, but the role playing aspect of these guys can make you sort of excited about the future when you see games like this, if they can add another star to it, right? Like if they can add a star and like a real guy to the top of the food chain. But yeah, when you watch games like this, it is a reminder that all these guys, it's a reminder of why the Nets also have, besides just guys like D'Lo and Schroeder, why the Nets have 14 wins on a roster that was projected to win, 18 and a half over the course of the season, is because everyone just plays slightly to a lot better than what the underlying expectation had been going into the season. And that's kind of what happened here against the Blazers.
Yeah, and it's funny too because you get you mentioned Day'Ron Sharpe, right? 18 minutes, and then Tosan as well with 18. So we assumed like you're gonna reset this a little bit and recalibrate who's playing how much. But both of them going a combined 8 of 13 from the field together, and obviously more stuff around the basket. Although Tosan knocked down one of his 2 shots from the perimeter. So yeah, all these contributors, right? It feels good when you see all of these players. And you mentioned too, we talked about last episode, Sean Marks strategic, and then maybe this little flash. Well, could Giannis be in the conversation in the offseason? Could any star? We heard from a lot of fans talking about, well, I'd still keep the powder dry for one of the younger potential stars. Everyone now goes to, well, Anthony Edwards. Let's wait to see what happens with him. Wait to see what happens with Luka. And the funny part about that, by the way, as a side note, is like, well, let's always wait for that guy. There's always that guy to potentially wait for. And then a couple more seasons go by and that guy gets a little bit older. Like the Giannis conversation happened 4 years ago, happened 5 years ago that, oh no, he'll never want to stay in Milwaukee. They can't keep it together. Then they got it, get the championship. And then you start to reset that cycle. But what's fascinating probably about it is if you're getting into muddled no man's land here, when it comes to the deadline, and now we keep coming back to this, there's probably another conversation here. And they have a really difficult schedule coming up. But depending on how it goes leading towards the deadline, kind of to your point about good performers and adding a player to it, what is it going to look like? This Cam Johnson thing, I'm shocked that he's still on the roster. Like, he had the injury. Okay, fine. So they didn't have to worry about him playing. But you play the Clippers, the Lakers, OKC. You come back for the Knicks, the Suns, and still the Miami Heat, who as of now have Jimmy Butler on that team. If they somehow walk into a win in there, even 2 wins in there, I don't know what this conversation is supposed to look like about Cam Johnson and some of these other role players. Zaire Williams isn't going anywhere, we don't think. There's no one else we look at this roster and say, watch out, someone's calling to trade for them. So what happens? Because maybe the strategic idea of how you're approaching it is also about what the offseason looks like. It's about who we think could be available and whether or not a pick we thought could have been top 3 might actually be 12th, right? Like, where are you going to land in the lottery? I think there's a lot more going on here, maybe behind the scenes, than we would want to admit, given the agenda coming into the year. Oh, we'll be getting Cooper Flagg. Oh, we'll be getting Harper, right? Well, maybe we're going to be talking about how other teams value a somewhat mid-tier first-round pick, knowing we have so many others coming in from other teams.
Yeah, I mean, that's where things are shooting for them to be drafting at this point. I don't really know another way around it. If you just look at the standings, it's just going to be tough. It's going to be tough to swap.
No. Hold on real quick here. I just simulated the lottery over on Tankathon. Brooklyn Nets get second overall. So we're actually fine. Whew.
Did you do it? How many times do you have to hit that? How many times do you have to hit the sim lottery button?
First time, baby. No, Come on, we did it.
I just did it their eighth. Okay.
So did I. I did it a second time. We're 8th. We got a problem. I don't know. But stay focused on that one moment when it all went perfectly.
This is what we would reduce to. No, I think we will see some movement here in the next week or two. I just think, again, deadlines make deals. And so we're still pretty far out from that. And I think that the Nets aren't going to.
It's still a few weeks.
I think they're going to want to, raise other teams' anxiety levels by getting closer to the deadline to get a better deal. I think that they feel the short-term trade-off of just like getting them off the team for, implied losses is not the same calculus as what they could bring back by having teams bargaining against or bidding against each other. Right.
Sure.
So I think that math is correct. Even if it's frustrating to sort of have these guys, helping for winning basketball. I still maintain that I think D'Lo is on the team all the way through the rest of the year. I think that's just my guess.
Yeah.
I think that he's just going to be on the team and it is just going to be what it is. But yeah, when you watch these games, I just tell you, man, it makes everyone look better. Like Zaire, Clowney, all of them just look better when they have just more organization on offense, which is not groundbreaking X's and O's, like, high level, just, analysis, but it's just true. If you have an organizer on the team, everyone just looks better. And I think that's what's happened since D'Lo's come. They basically played league average basketball since he's been on the team. And for a team that theoretically is, I mean, they're not even theoretically, they're way under league average in terms of like talent. The reason is because they are, I've lost it, 14-26 in the season. So they're not a league average team, but with him on the team, they're basically playing league average basketball.
Tells you.
Yeah, they're playing neutral basketball, and I think that's what people should sign up for.
We've got a conversation coming up as well this week about Nicholas Claxton and what his season has looked like. And certainly as we approach the deadline, I think we'll also discuss how the Nets are going to look at maybe trying to shed some of this talent. And are they going to be willing to try to go and drive that hard bargain for Cam Johnson, but maybe also find a soft trade partner for D'Lo? I agree he'll probably be here through the year, but you never know because things happen quickly. Trades go down really fast. The Dennis Schroeder one came out of somewhat nowhere. So we'll see what the Brooklyn Nets end up doing. But as I mentioned, these next handful of games will maybe recalibrate us in terms of where they stand. Potentially could be looking at 14-30 in the blink of an eye as we head into next week.
We're going to get out of here. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Nets over on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Totally free for you. It's the number one way to help the podcast coming at you 5 days a week, talking Brooklyn Nets. Go and find another place that's talking Brooklyn Nets basketball 5 days a week, except for like the Yes Network. There isn't. And if there is, leave a link in the comments because I want to know about it. But that's just what's happening. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Nets over on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Any fool can know, but the point is to understand. And that is Alvin Einstein.
Never heard of him, but I'm going to assume he's one of the all-time great poets. So back again tomorrow talking Brooklyn Nets basketball.
Basketball.